Yo, what's going on, y'all? Your boy back with another video. It's about that time. Gotta do my weekly commentary on the stock market. But before I get into that, I want to talk about the pros and cons of investing in stocks versus funds. And by funds, I mean ETFs and index funds. And then I'll just throw in my personal preference. I think in the portfolio, I think the bulk of the portfolio for most people, more for most retail investors, should be concentrated and built solely around index funds or ETFs, passively managed index funds for that matter. And for the sake of like time and to keep from constantly saying index and ETFs, I'm gonna just say index funds. ETFs are essentially a spinoff of index funds. They're just index funds that trade like stocks, pretty much. Same concept, other than that. But from my research and from just a lot of reading, articles and books, um, and just seeing the statistics. My research shows that is a lot more wisdom in building a portfolio around index funds. Why? Because they're a lot more predictable. They're not as volatile as a stock. When I say stocks, I'm gonna just speak in terms of one stock. Because index funds are a group of stocks. So when I mention stocks, like when I contrast the two investment options, I'm a contrast indexing with just a single stock. The reason why I think it's much wiser to for your investment options to orbit index funds is one, because they're predictable. You pretty much with index funds, you pretty much know what you're gonna get. Generally, you know what you're gonna get. It can be higher, it can be lower, but on average, you know the type of returns you're gonna get. Which leads me to my next point. They're not as volatile. They're not as volatile, and that makes me think of Warren Buffett's his legendary advice he gave about investing, which was number one, uh, don't lose money, and number two, the second rule is to not forget number one. Even though in investing, especially in the stock market, you're gonna lose money. It's just, if you're a buy and hold investor, you got pretty much full control of your emotions, and you're a logical person, you won't lose that much money. You for the totality of your investment timeline, you're gonna gain more than you lose. In the short term, you'll lose money. In the long term, you're gonna gain money. And the pros outweigh the cons when it comes to investing in general. So that's number two. They're not as volatile. So, and the reason why I mention that is, one, because it's true, and the importance of limiting volatility, I guess, in your index funds or in your portfolio is beneficial, especially for your emotional health if you're not as experienced in it. Especially also if you haven't been invested during stock market downturns like what we're experiencing now. I'm not a big news person, but I like to keep my ear to the streets to see what the sentiment is overall, and to see what's kind of, just to get a good, have some type of awareness of what's going on out in the world that can affect the stock market. But for the most part, I tune that stuff out, man, because it can affect your mindset negatively. It'll have you just erratic, man, and it'll have you living in fear. You don't want to live in fear, man. You don't want your peace of mind being negatively impacted by all the noise that's coming from CNN, CNNBC, What else, man? Yahoo Finance. You don't want, even though I prefer Yahoo to listen to the people from Yahoo Finance over the actual news stations, even then I keep them to a minimum. If I want knowledge, for the most part, I'm gonna just go read my books. One book I got, I'm reading right here, Common Sense on Mutual Funds, by the GOAT, or one of the GOATs, John Bogle. So yeah, these guys are seasoned with experience and full of wisdom, and just no nonsense guys whose track record speak for themselves. So I just eat from the wisdom of their track record. But index funds, reason number 4, why I think it should center around, your portfolio should center around index funds, is because they're passively managed. The biggest reason why passively managed funds are better is because it saves you stress, it saves you time, it saves you a lot of effort to keep from having to research stocks. When you're investing in a single stock, you, in order to make a conscious decision that this stock purchase is a good investment, it requires a lot of research. You got to browse the website for information pertaining to the performance of this business, because that's what a stock is. It's just a microscopic view of a business, of how they're doing financially. That's all the stock is. But when you're investing in the stock, it requires you to research company performance, balance sheets, income statements. It's a lot of stuff you gotta research in order to make a well-informed investment decision. If not, then you're just gambling and you're hoping on a wing and a prayer for a return, for a positive return, that is. So that's the passively managed aspect of index funds in general is perhaps the best reason, and it saves you a lot of worry. You're gonna be the market rather than beat the market. It's hard to beat the market. You hear people say, "Oh, I beat the market. I beat the market." They may beat the market out of a span of 15 years. They may beat the market 2 or 3 times at the most. They don't tell you about the times they lose to the market, or where the market just absolutely obliterates their efforts. So I wouldn't pay earnest heed to people who say they beat the market, because there's a lot more context behind that. The market is pretty much undefeated. It's hard to beat it. If you truly want to beat the market, outpace the market, but it's not really going to happen every year. Is just invest in a growth fund. If you want to outpace a total market fund or the S&P 500, just invest in a growth fund, a passively managed large cap growth fund, that is. But I wouldn't worry myself with trying to beat the market. Now, stocks, on the other hand, the reason why, so although I recommend centering your portfolio around index funds, there are benefits to investing in stocks. One is pretty much the unlimited upside. When the index funds, they can grow. You can get some sizable returns, man. Like the bull market we seen in 2023 and 2024, especially in 23, for instance. SCHG, which is a large cap growth ETF, passively managed, expense ratios 0.08%. This for in the year in 2023, it yielded a return of a slightly over 50%. And then the next year it was like 32%. That's amazing. But my point, when it comes to upside stocks, there's a lot more upside in stocks because there's nothing else to balance it. Everything rises and falls on the performance of that one stock. Whereas in index funds, you got a slew of companies. And we already know not every company is going to do well at the same time. It's a seesaw effect, which pretty much uh, prevents the fund from growing as high as the stock. The seesaw effect of the stock is like a balanced effect. So let's say, for instance, you got 5 companies, you got 10 companies in the fund. 5 do well and 5 don't do well. Well, the upside of the 5 is going to be brought down by the negative returns of the other 5. So the upside in the fund, therefore, is limited due to the nature of how it's constructed. There's a lot of companies in here, and we know year in year out the performance is going to be erratic. So it pretty much brings the upside of a fund down here, but it can still grow well. Whereas when a stock grows well or performs well in a given year, any given year, it can shoot all the way up. But at the same time, if the market is down, there's nothing to balance the declining performance of that stock to keep it from going down as far. So while I wouldn't say don't invest in stocks. I would just keep it to a minimum. Like me and my portfolio, for example, I have 75%. Well, I got 85% of my portfolio centered in funds, and I leave 15% for stocks. But I don't invest in just one stock. I created my own little fund, and I got 10 different holdings in it. So it's like a fund, but it gives me it's the part of my portfolio that I truly control. The other 85% I just leave on autopilot, let it do its thing, leave it alone, let it grow in peace. So when I say there's pros and cons, I don't like to say cons. I would say there's a lot more certainty with funds. And wisdom says, historical wisdom says, invest more of your money in funds. I wouldn't suggest don't invest in stocks. It's just before you do it, especially if you're new to it, just educate yourself on it first, because there's a lot of, when you see the stock not doing well, it's going to mess you up. It's going to cause you to uproot your money. So when it comes to stock, I would just educate myself first. And on funds, investing in general, I would educate myself first, because the emotional toll it can take on you when the market is not doing well. If your money is just locked up in a couple stocks, man, it's gonna hurt you. It's gonna hurt you. So I would just get my feet wet first. You gotta crawl before you walk. But there's benefits to both. There's upside to both. There's money to be made in both. But like I said, in life, in all things, there's balance. So I wouldn't just be on either side of the spectrum. I'll just take a balanced approach. Have money put up in stocks and funds, but don't over diversify, because that is a thing. You can't be too diversified to where now your money is diluted so much so that it minimizes or it mitigates the amount of return that you could have potentially saw had it just been concentrated in a few different investments. So that's my take on it, man. But always research, 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 research. You cannot afford to not learn. You cannot afford to not study. That's not just on investing, that's in life in general. But now for my commentary on the stock market, man. Hey. Now, yesterday I was watching that was Haystack News, or I forgot what news station I was watching. And you hear this word fear a lot. Oh, investors are feared and concerned, stuff like worries. You hear this terminology a lot. And I'm like, what is there to fear? I remember in my one of my older videos, if y'all haven't watched it, I said the best education serves as the best insurance against investing in financial worries and concerns or fears. Because if you know what you're doing, ain't nothing to worry about. So I don't understand where all this fear coming from, especially if people have been invested as long as they say they have. Like, what is there to be tripping about? That's why it's not good to consume much news. You don't want your spirit, your mind to be affected by that stuff. But with the stock market for the rest of this week, I think it's gonna be down, man. This whole tariff thing, this man, this especially, with these reciprocal tariffs, and just as long as there's a lot of noise centered around the tariffs, it's gonna impact the stock market negatively. And so it's not like I don't think things are gonna change this week. But I wouldn't panic. All this is doing, in my opinion, God is the invisible hand that controls the economy. I truly believe that. So I'm not panicking about anything. If anything, this market climate that we're seeing right now, just provides us with the greatest opportunity to get in position, because we already know investing historical investing history, stock market history tells us that after every downturn, there's only one way to go but up. The deeper the dip, the sweeter and the steeper, the sweeter and the higher the recovery. The deeper the dip, the sweeter and the higher the recovery. So all this is doing is affording us an opportunity to get in position so we can see some sizable gains after this. We already know after every downturn, recovery follows. So I don't know why those taglines are constantly being thrown out by investors are concerned and worried. I think the people who saying that are the same people who are probably behind the scenes buying up these equities. Man, I think the people who are espousing fear and all kind of like wanting us to panic, I think these same people are behind the scenes putting a lot of money in, because the market is on sale right now. So if you can get a lot of investors out, you can get a lot of your money in. So, hey, I don't put nothing past any of them analysts, man. I don't trust any of them. Like, straight up. There's only a few guys whose advice I trust, because they really have a heart for the average everyday investor. Guys like Burt Malkiel, Charles Ellis, Bogle, and Buffett. These guys, I really believe they want to see everyday investing Americans succeed. So, and like I said, my trust is in God. It's not in Trump. It's not in any president. It's not in America. I don't trust any of them. My trust is in Christ through and through. But that's why I'm gonna stay invested. And so, with that being said, I'm gonna take on off. The stock market, man, it was designed for us to get rich. It was designed for us to build wealth. I looked up a statistic the other day that said 90% of the stock market, if I'm not mistaken, 90% of the stock market is owned by the top 1%. Think about that. That means pretty much every billionaire in America has most of their money in the stock market. Why? Why is that? You see people at the bottom of the financial totem pole get mad at the people at the top. Oh, they got all the money. They doing this, that, and the third. You can't control what they do. If they doing this and getting results and it's legal, then you should do it too. Just follow them. Just follow what they doing. Don't try to reinvent the wheel. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. If these people got their money and had their money in the stock market for years and have built wealth for years, why aren't you doing the same thing? They not complaining about what the bottom people doing, the bottom dwellers, the bottom feeders doing. Man, these people are putting their money in, seeing returns, and sticking through it. The people at the bottom those are the ones who are erratic and who complain and who are miserable. So the stock market exists for us to build wealth. Think about it. It's the business of America. That's the stock market right there in a nutshell. It's the business of America. And what we know about American business, it always appreciates. Yeah, the downturns, think about it. You got this line. It goes up, it takes a dip. It goes up, takes a dip. Goes up, takes a dip. But look where my hand at versus where it started. Over time, it always appreciates, bro. You never have to panic or worry about the stock market. It always appreciates. And one thing I will give America is that after every crash, it seems like we learn a lesson from it. And so the crashes, the succeeding crashes and downturns don't seem to be as bad as the previous crashes and downturns, because it looks like we learn a lesson from the previous ones, and then we just implement the learning lessons, which is why the crashes and downturns don't seem to last as long as the previous ones. So my tip, man, stay invested, man. Don't be wavering to and fro. Don't let other people's panic become your panic, and just learn. LED, learning every day. So y'all be blessed, and I'll catch y'all in the next video. Peace.